Hi, and welcome to this exciting Adobe Max session, Building Powerful Instagram Assets in Photoshop. First of all, thank you so much for joining me. I am Cladi, an award-winning Italian designer, author, and business mentor based in Manchester, UK, where I run my design practice, Studio Print My Soul. You can see my contact details on the slide. If you have any questions or comments, I would love to hear from you. At Studio Print My Soul, we specialize in a strategic approach to visual communication and design, delivering marketing services to businesses of all sizes, from local startups to Fortune 500 companies like Adobe. But no matter the size of the company that I'm working with, my goal as a designer is to communicate the distinctive elements of a brand while building engaging visuals. In this session, I will take you behind the scenes of my real-world workflow from developing branded professional Instagram assets. We will start with a client brief, and I will show you my time-saving, seamless workflow between Photoshop, Illustrator, and Stock. In this session, I will help you build an engaging graphic by mastering the industry-standard apps, helping you to stand out from the crowd. By the end of this presentation, you will learn how to browse professional Adobe Stock assets within the Photoshop Libraries panel, leverage filters and the gradient tool to create better masks, launch Illustrator directly from Photoshop, and edit Adobe Stock vectors on the fly, create custom color themes in Photoshop and apply them to vectors in Illustrator. Use the timeline panel to create animations in Photoshop. Also, export videos and images ready to be shared with the world. You will find more information about this session on my website, iamcladi.com/max2020. Here, you will also find the assets that I will use in this session, including my client brief, and we will start from there. It's vital to follow the brief to develop a coherent visual language that will make the company easy to recognize and memorable by offering a consistent experience to its users. And if you're working with a startup or a small company which does not have this structure in place, it becomes your duty as a designer to build a visual code. A cohesive and successful representation of the company will help you to convey its identity, products, and services. And of course, all these actions will lead to increased brand recognition and will impact on performances, accelerating the company's success. The key information that you will have to look for in a brief are, for example, the brand identity and the brand guidelines. You want to be aware of the do and don'ts, making sure that you don't use any language or images that perhaps can offend the brand, and really stay focused on the mood and the look and feel. In this particular brief that we're going to have a look at, we're going to build an Instagram asset for a fashion brand, one of my Italian clients called Dolce. So we already have an idea of the color theme that has to have some blue and reds in order to represent the logo, and also an ethos that is inspired by youth nostalgia with classic, with a twist teenager rebellion feel, and a sense of apathy towards the surrounding events. It's also important to have a look at the visual reference that the clients provide us, and of course, the deliverables. But let's jump in Photoshop so we can start creating our Instagram assets. Click on Create New to open a new document. Set the intent to web because we know that we're going to be designing for screen. And by doing so, Photoshop will change the presets by switching the measurement into pixels and the resolution to 72 dpi and the color mode to RGB. All we're left to do is to set the size of our document. I'm going to use the standard size for an Instagram post, which are 1080 pixels by 1080 pixels. And then I'm going to save these document presets so we can use them over and over again anytime that we're going to be designing an Instagram post. In order to do so, click on this down pointing arrow and let's name this preset Insta Post, and then click on Save Presets. To access your saved presets, all you have to do is to click on Save, and then you'll be able to find your Insta Post here. I'm going to deselect Artboard because I'm going to be working with one single document. So all I have to do now is to click on Create, and we're ready to start. The client unfortunately hasn't provided any images to go with the project, so he's relying on us to find professional photographies to use for our Instagram post. The most time-saving way to leverage professional photography is to work directly in Photoshop by using the Adobe Stock service, which is integrated in our Photoshop app. All you have to do is to choose the window menu and make sure that your libraries panel are selected. Once you browse to your library, all you have to do is to click on the down pointing arrow and then click on create new library to create a bespoke library that you'll be using for this project. I'm going to call my library Dolce Instagram, and then I'm going to click on create. Then in order to search your libraries, all you have to do is to head to the search bar under the library panel. And I'm going to use and copy some keywords that I found while I was reading the brief. Also, make sure that you head under the filter and you select the kind of asset that you're looking for. So in this case, I'm going to be looking for photos. Then you can click and drag in order to open the libraries panel and have a better look at the photo that you can browse in Adobe Stock. Once you find an image that you like, all you have to do is to click on the little plus icon in order to add that image to your library. And when you are set with a specific image, like I'm going to use this one, all you have to do is to license it by click on the little cart icon. I'm going to do the same for the background. I'm going to go for a more abstract background. Again, click on the little plus to add that into your library and click on the little cart in order to license it when you're ready to use it. I already licensed my assets, so all I have to do is to press on the plus icon in order to add it to my library. Then you can right click and click on place linked in order to place the asset inside your document, or you can simply click and drag your file into your document, and as you can see, is ready to use, and Photoshop has created two different layers. I'm going to double click to rename the layers. I'm going to call this one subject background, and then I'm going to press Command J with the layer selected in order to duplicate it and rename it simply subject. I'm doing so just so I will have a little bit more of control with the foreground and the background, just like so. I'm going to double click and call this pink cloud, and that will help me to stay organized, especially when we're going to jump into the animation. Fantastic. At the moment, I'm going to toggle the visibility of the subject background, and I'm going to do the same with the background. I'm just going to resize it. So I'm going to click on the layer, press Command T to transform on Mac. That's Control T on Windows. And I'm going to hold the Option key on Mac, that's Alt on Windows, in order to resize the background. Then I'm going to select our subject and I'm going to start to create a mask in order to isolate the image of the girl. And in order to do so, I'm going to access my Select and Mask workspace by heading to the Select menu and choose Select and Mask. This is a dedicated space that will allow you to create a very detailed mask in just a few clicks. The basic mode is set to onion skin. That will allow you to set the transparency of your selection. And at the moment, if we set it to 100, there is no selection made, so everything becomes transparent. When I'm going to click to select subject, Adobe Sensei in just a few seconds will do an amazing job of cutting out the image of the main subject. And we can really take advantage of this slider by using this transparency and understand if there is maybe some bits that we miss or there is something that we want to hide. I'm going to zoom in to make sure that we see what's going on into our mask. And I can see that, for example, I can use the global refinement just down here to bump up the contrast. Although this is starting to bring a little bit of a jagged edge. So I'm going to use the smooth slider to make sure that I refine and smoothen those edges. And once you're happy with your selection, I think Adobe Sensei has done a pretty fantastic job. All I have to do is to click on OK. And we have created our mask. I'm going to bring this panel back so we can have more state for the image into our workspace. And double click on the hand tool to fit the image to screen. As you can see, we have some edges here on the mask that will need to be further refined. There is a hidden gem here in Photoshop that will allow you to refine the edges of your mask. Make sure that you select the mask, then go under Filter and select Other and Minimum. By accessing the minimum filter, you will be able to contract your mask because, as you probably already know, white reveals and black conceals. So the more we spread the black area, the more we'll be able to refine our edges or the visible pixels. Also, minimum is a pretty amazing tool to use because it gives us the possibility to really refine the radius, working with decimal numbers, giving you fantastic control of your masks. Now let's click on OK to accept the changes. And we can go ahead and perhaps refine even further by using the brush tool. Let's press on the letter B on your keyboard to access the brush tool, or you can find it here in your toolbar. Make sure that the color black is selected on the foreground, and all you have to do with your mask selected is to brush the areas that you still want to hide. Just like so, or maybe a little bit on this side. I'm not too worried about the bottom side of the image because we're going to bring it in here with the background in just a second. As you can see, the reason why I've created duplicate is so we could work now with the background into a separate layer, again, giving us more control of what's going on into our composition. I'm going to create another mask for the background in order to start to build the cloud and bring them into our background. In order to do so, I'm going to create another layer mask by selecting the layer and clicking on the mask, a little icon at the bottom of my layer panels. And then I'm going to click on the gradient and click on the down pointing arrow, going to basics and select black to white. Then with your mask selected, all you have to do is to click and drag by Alt Shift in order to create a straight line. And as you can see, we're already bringing the clouds inside of our background. To make it even more realistic, I'm going to click on the cloud layer, press Command J to duplicate, and use the shortcut Command Shift right curly bracket to bring it on the top of our layer stack. Then I'm going to create an inverted mask by holding Option on Mac, that's Alt on Windows, and click on our mask little icon again. And as you can see, everything is going to be hidden because all the mask is covered in black. So all the pixels are hidden. And if I paint now with white in order to bring some details in, it looks pretty unnatural. It's not the effect that I'm going for. So I'm going to press Command Z to undo and then click on the down pointing arrow and click on the gear icon and get more brushes in order to discover the fantastic brushes created by Kyle Webster, available only with your Adobe AD. Once you log in, you'll be able to browse thousands of brushes. If you wanted to follow along and just replicate what I'm doing here, all you have to do is to download the concept brushes, click on download, and once you open them, let me show you where you can find them in Photoshop. All you have to do is to click again on the down pointing arrow, and you're going to find your concept folder here. And once you click on the down pointing arrow next to the folder icon, you'll be able to browse many fantastic brushes that Kyle has created for us. The one that I'm going to use in order to create a smoke effect is this Clouds Fat. And as you can see, I can start bringing in a little bit of the clouds, and perhaps I'm going to make this brush smaller by pressing the left bracket, and I can bring the smoke and the clouds in the foreground as well. Fantastic. It's time to add some type. The brief has told us to use the word rad, and if you love, like me, some bespoke font, but perhaps building a vector type is not your top skill, Adobe Stock comes to help in this way as well. Let me show you how you can browse some fantastic professional vector fonts directly into Photoshop without leaving your workspace. Let's head back to our libraries and click on the search bar. I'm going to use some keywords that I've lifted from the brief. So in this case, I'm going to use the word pop art, font, trendy, and also you want to make sure that under filter, you select vectors so you can have Adobe Stock already narrowing down the search for you. Once you find a font that you like, all you have to do again is to simply click on the little plus in order to add it to your libraries, and then make sure to license it by clicking on the little card if you end up using it for your project. I've already licensed this beautiful pop art, so all I have to do is to press on the little plus icon in order to add it to my library. And if I want to start to use each single letter, all you have to do is to double click into your asset. And from Photoshop, you will have Adobe Illustrator launching and opening the file for you right away. Now, Illustrator is letting you know that you're working with an RGB mode, and the settings of this document are CMYK. It's asking us if we can discard these color settings. So I'm just going to click on continue. And then I'm going to select my image and use the shortcut Shift Command G. That's a Shift Control G on Windows in order to ungroup my vector elements. You can definitely see that those are all vector by using the shortcut Command Y. That's Control Y on Windows to see the outline of all these vectors. And then press Control Y, that's Command Y again, in order to go back to normal preview. I'm going to select the letter R, then hold Shift and select the letter A and D, which are the letters that I need. And then holding Option on Mac, that's Alt on Windows, I'm going to drag them down in order to create a copy. And I'm going to bring them together over here, because those are the letters that we're going to use in our composition. Fantastic. So all I have to do now is to head back to my libraries. Then we can start by bringing the letter R, and look what happens. The graphic gets added into your library and is ready to be used here in Photoshop. The only issue is that the colors don't really match. So we really want to make sure that we stick to our brand consistency. So before using these letters, I'm going to click on delete in order to delete this asset. I'm going to make sure to lift the color theme from the image that we've created. First of all, I'm going to create a smart object out of this composition. And I'm going to do so by clicking on the first layer and then scroll down to the very last one by holding Shift and clicking on the layer, and then right-clicking and converting the layers into a smart object. Smart objects are very special layers that can contain vectors and images, so Photoshop and Illustrator files, but most importantly, they will allow us to perform non-destructive editing to our layers. And that means that the content will keep its original characteristics, despite any editing that we're going to do to the layer. But let's click now on this little plus, and then let's access the Create from Image, which is the wonderful capture service integrated into Photoshop. You can keep creating without losing your attention, and you can stay focused on your work. Now select Color Themes, and as you can see, Photoshop is already selected some different mode for you. Actually, Capture has already selected some color modes for you. I'm going to use this colorful one, but you can browse between bright or perhaps muted. Probably I'll go with muted. I think it allows me a little bit more of contrast. And then you can save it to your CC library and it gets added right away. Once you're done, you can do that as many times as you want. But once you're done, all you have to do is to click Close. And let's head back into our pop art file and let's find our letters here. I'm going to now use our magic wand in order to select element with the same appearance. If you do not find the magic wand, all you have to do is to click on the little three dot to edit your toolbar and then click on the fly menu and make sure that advanced is selected. Fantastic. Now with the little magic wand, I'm going to go ahead and click one color at a time. So for example, I'm going to start by the green, and then I'm going to select the pink, and then I'm going to select the purple. By clicking back into your library, you can leverage the color that you have lifted from your image, and that will assure you to create some assets that are cohesive and coherent with your work. When you're done, all you have to do is to go back to your selection tool by pressing the letter V on your keyboard and select one letter at a time. And then click to add library, or you can select the vector and bring it into the library just by dragging it. In order to keep your library tidy, we can delete the asset that we don't need. So for example, the first R, just select it and click on the little bin to delete the asset. Let's jump back into Photoshop. It's time to bring in the letters and build some animation. All we have to do now is to drag the letters in. I'm going to start with the letter R, and then the letter A, and the letter D. And I'm going to start to transform them by selecting all layer by clicking on the first one, holding Shift and select all 3 letters, and then press Command T to transform. Given the 3D size of the letter, I'm going to try to match the perspective by creating this distortion using the shortcut Command and using our little selection here. I'm going to start to click and drag into my bounding box in order to resize them. You can also resize them simply by using our selection tool and also rotate them just like so. Remember, you can also bring back your images, but once you're happy with the way that you have transformed your file. I think perhaps I went a little bit too far. They look a little bit too flat at the moment, so we can perhaps bring them back just like so, and then maybe rotate them a little bit more. Once you're happy with the transformation, all you have to do is to click on return. And now I'm going to select one letter at a time. I'm going to actually start by naming them so it's not very confusing. So this is the letter D, and this is the letter A. And again, double click on the side of the layer in order to rename them. I'm going to start with the letter R, press the letter V in order to access your move tool, and I'm going to bring it down here. Then I'm going to do the same with the letter A, and again with the letter D, just like so. Once you're happy with the positioning, you can Alt Shift select the layer and perhaps refine your positioning so it looks a little bit more realistic. So you can make it a little bit bigger, and then perhaps Alt Command on Mac, that's Control on Windows, to transform also the perspective. But let's start to animate these letters. In order to access the animation, all you have to do is to click on a window and then access your timeline panel. Let's click on Create Video Timeline. And the first element that you want to get familiar with are the frames over here, which mirror exactly the structure of the layers. And then we have the little playhead here, which is this red line with a blue on top that will allow us to navigate the time. But let's start by moving our letter R. Click on the down pointing arrow and make sure that you click on the position, because that's the animation that we're going to be working on. We're going to change the position in time. So I'm going to move the playhead forward in time since I already have the final position. And I'm going to click this time stop in order to create the first time frame. This keyframe is going to tell us, it's pretty much like a stamp in time, letting us know that this is the position of the element at that given time. If I move the playhead back in time and then move the letter R to the top, Photoshop is going to create another keyframe because it's going to let us know that at time 0, the R is on the top, while when we move towards our second keyframe, the letter R is at the bottom. And I'm going to do the same for the rest of these letters. But I want to share one more secret. Do you know that you can add also music into your Photoshop animation? All you have to do is to click on this little music icon and then click on Add Audio. I already have a clip that very kindly one of my amazing clients, a successful singer-songwriter called Ioni, allowed me to use for this presentation. So all I have to do is to select the MP4 from the destination folder, click on Open, and Photoshop will bring it directly in. Now I'm going to make sure that the clip has the same length, and we are ready to play. Fantastic, it's time to save. In order to save your file, click on the File menu and then Render Video. And click on Render. And another way in which you can save all this file into a flat JPEG is to click on the layers, use a very fantastic shortcut, which is a Shift Option Command E. And as you can see, we have created one layer that contains a copy of all the layers that we have created so far. Right click on this layer and select Quick Export as a PNG. Select the destination folder. For me will be the desktop. I'm going to call it Instagram Dolce and then click on Save. Now if we head back to our desktop, you see that we have our flat image and video animation ready to impress our clients. And we're done. I really hope you enjoyed this session. It was my pleasure to share my techniques and workflow with you. I hope that you will find it useful and you will leave this session excited to implement these techniques in your projects. I would like to thank you so much for your time and remind you that you can get in touch with me at any time for questions, feedback, or to talk about business and design. I would love to stay in touch. Again, my name is Clady, and you can find me on Instagram at @IamClady, and also you can find some useful links on this slide. Thank you so much, and I will see you next time.